Welcome to the Advisor's Edge. I'm Chad Ramberg here with Chuck Failla, and we've got Rob joining us, an old favorite, and Daleele. So we're going to have a good time today. The show is about helping advisors think more clearly about real decisions that shape their advisory firm, risks, clients, compliance, long-term durability, all that stuff. Today, joined by Daleele, and we're happy to have him. So let's go ahead and get into this. And I'm a little out of practice because we've had a few weeks not recording, but we're happy to be here. And Daleele, you founded RooksDM. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So let's start to get to know just a little about you. Where do you come from, and what does RooksDM do to help advisory firms?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks so much for having me on the show today. So RooksDM comes from my background in technology and my co-founder's background in technology. So went to school for IT. I was always in the middle of working with business owners to use technology to solve business problems, and then developers to take those business problems, translate them into actual solutions that technology would actually help solve. We started RooksDM back in 2014 while working full time, and now I've been doing RooksDM full time since 2018. And so my role has morphed over the years, but I'm still involved to a certain degree with the solutions, and certainly meeting with clients to understand their pain points, their needs, and if there's solutions that we can help them build that would overcome those specific problems across their firm.
Yeah. And I think you and I originally bumped into each other at maybe NAPFA, which you're at NAPFA spring conference right now. This is
Yes.
going to be released a little bit later, but that's pretty darn cool. You know, working directly with advisors, was that the original plan for RooksDM, or did that just a natural fit for you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Natural fit for us. When we originally started the company, we were working broadly across professional service organizations. So we worked across the gamut: legal, accounting, lots of finance, healthcare, you name it. We've worked in those industries. And in 2019, what ended up happening is we got an RIA client that needed some of our support. They were doing a lot of stuff manually at that time, and there was a lot of copy and pasting of data, a lot of like getting data and documents via email, downloading them, renaming them, things of that nature. So we said, hey, we can build you some automations. And through that experience, we realized RIAs use a lot of different technologies that don't talk to each other. They're always constantly trying to figure out which technology they should be using, they shouldn't be using, and how to integrate everything together. And so we found a good need for those types of service offerings, and we've been doing it ever since then.
Nice. So this is a good time to pause for a second, because I want Chuck to, I bet his brain's turning and some good questions are coming up. But I also want to mention Rob's here today. And the reason is we're all in a service industry, and I've got a potential new client. I'm going to be exiting out early, but this is why Rob's here. And obviously Chuck is also awesome to have on. So we're going to pivot for a minute, Chuck, because I think I see your wheels turning there. What are you thinking about this?
Well, I do have a couple of questions. So first, I do like to start off with name derivation. Where did the name Rooks come from?
Good question. So my parents are originally from Ethiopia, and so Rooks is actually pronounced Rook, and it means to go far. And so our whole concept is helping people and businesses go further than they are today, and that's where the name actually comes from.
I love that. I thought there was some kind of story behind there, and clearly there was. That's a great name derivation story. So more to the heart of what you're doing, and this is coming up a lot for us as a firm, because we're trying to get everything as efficient as possible. You can't go to a conference and not hear about AI.
Yep.
And we're looking at it right now, and it just seems like we're kind of adding more tech on top of more tech to talk to more tech so they can all talk to each other, right? So how do you guys tackle this? And let me frame it this way. So, and I like specificity. Like when I'm listening to a podcast, I like when it starts, 30,000 foot, getting really granular. So let me talk about what we're doing. So we have Salesforce, Orion, and eMoney. Those are like the three main parts of our tech stack. And we're talking to the usual suspects. We're talking to Zox. We're talking to Jump and thinking about doing that AI. But then we're hearing about how a lot of other firms are using Claude, even on top of that. So is it AI on top of AI on top of a tech stack? Like, what's the best way to go here? What, in your opinion?
Yeah, so we just did a webinar on this on Wednesday as well, too. And how do you approach AI as a whole? Everyone's trying to figure it out. Our philosophy is not even tech related to start there is, hey, what problems are you looking to actually solve, and kind of back into that and unpack it to say, hey, I'm trying to get insights for what type of clients I'm servicing. Can I get that very easily? Or, hey, our team is spending too much time we're in hyper growth mode. We're spending too much time in the intake process. Where in the process is broken, and where can we leverage technology to be able to solve that? Or can we even leverage technology as a process thing, as a people thing? Or if it's technology, then what does that solution actually look like? So that's typically where our team will start, is we'll come in and we'll understand how your firm is operating today, and really try to unpack what are the challenges that you guys are facing and find what the root problem is, and then determine, does AI solve it? Does an integration solve it? Does an automation solve it? And if so, what does that actually look like to be able to get implemented, is how we tackle it. And a lot of times what we see, especially like you said, AI is really hot right now, and there's a lot of products that are out there. We don't have a product that we own. We consult on, hey, which products are you actually looking at? And we always ask the question of, why do you even want to add that product to your technology ecosystem? What problem is it actually going to help solve? Is it going to create more maintenance, more challenges than good? Because you also have to train users, you have to pay for it, you have to make sure it integrates with your existing technology stack. So asking a lot of those questions up front ahead of trying to throw technology at the problem is typically how we approach it. And so in your case, if you are looking at those three, that's great, because then we would ask the question of, okay, for your Salesforce, Orion, eMoney, for example, what's the source of data that's in there, and what do you want to kind of get answers from across all of them? And then that's where AI would kick in to be like, okay, let me build an agent that allows me to access maybe 2 out of the 3 systems to be able to glean insights from what type of clients I'm servicing, or so on and so forth. That's typically the approach we would take.
And this is something else I've been really eager to get some clarity on. Is it fair to say that the trend is we are no longer going to live in our CRMs? Like, we live in Salesforce, right? Or generally speaking, will we soon be living essentially in that AI UI, right? User interface, the AI user interface, and really not even be in the Salesforce as much? Is that what's coming? And basically like custom portals? Or if you could speak to that, because I'm really curious on how that's going to look.
Yeah, I think, and I've talked to my co-founder about this as well too, because he spends a lot more time thinking about it and working with clients. I think it's early to really tell that, but to your point, yes, team members interacting with agents is a real thing. The training would be another component outside of that as well too. People are familiar with going into their CRM, clicking around, and being able to get the answers that they need and putting the data in there. I think over time, people will start to rely more on the agents themselves, but it goes back to the fundamentals of, if they are using that agent, are they getting the right answers that they actually need? And does the agent have access to the appropriate data to be able to give them the insights that they're looking for? I know I've heard that a lot about CRMs are going away. I don't have a specific prediction on that quite yet. My co-founder may, but I think, yes, how people are interacting with systems is certainly changing because of AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like
I have a follow-up on that.
Go for it, Rob. Yeah.
Curious. Well, give us an example of something that an advisor would be doing inside of their CRM that you could solve for with technology and an AI agent. Like, give us an example of what they would be doing or what they would be looking for to solve, so maybe they weren't spending all their time inside of a CRM. I call CRMs the sales prevention department, because I think a lot of times if we spend too much time inside of technology, it takes us away from being in front of clients or prospecting. Share with us an example of something that an advisor would be doing inside of a CRM that could potentially be solved with an AI agent or solved with technology.
Probably reporting. So if you use the CRM, you're trying to generate reports of like current clients, prospective clients. Instead of having to create those reports, you can just ask an AI agent, hey, give me a list of the top 50 clients that I may want to reach out to that I haven't, that is in my CRM today, versus having to go into the CRM, find the data, slice it, and then generate the report. You can just ask the agent to give you those insights. If the CRM has additional data, not just like name, email, if it also captures the email activity in there, that's another thing. If it captures tasks in there, which a lot of people create tasks in the CRM, that could be another thing. So you can start asking the question of, hey, how many touch points does it actually take for us to go from prospect to client? Or it'll start giving you those answers much quicker versus having to create reports manually. But it also goes back to data of like, I know you probably heard the saying garbage in, garbage out. There's no difference. So a lot of times I'm having conversations of, hey, AI is smart enough, it can take all this unstructured data and give us insights on it. If the data is not appropriate, the insights won't be what you're looking for. So that's part of it as well too, and why we focus on starting with the end in mind, or thinking about, hey, what are you trying to accomplish by using this specific technology?
Yeah, I got yeah, this is great. I got a question like security wise, right? Being in the business risk management space. So when we use Salesforce too, so we got familiarity there, but we can obviously use APIs and move data in or out. And the nice thing about that, if we're going to do anything with AI, we want to make sure that we're not releasing information into that AI without, we don't want somebody to use that as a backdoor, right? So what's the best thing? Because we don't want to just pull a customer list or a client list or a prospect list and dump it into any one of the ones out there, because we don't want it to be out there in that way. How do you recommend, usually when you're talking about using AI, what's the best way to think about it to make sure we're not letting that information get into the LLMs in a way that shares what we're doing?
Yeah, and I think Chuck was talking about of technology on top of technology, but asking
Right.
the question of, hey, is there existing technology that has this capability that I can leverage? And as part of it, I know Salesforce had, I believe it's Einstein that Salesforce has for their AI. So going down that path to say, hey, can we leverage Einstein within Salesforce to be able to glean those insights? And if not, what is our exposure related to giving another third-party system access to it? We try to take the ecosystem approach, like most of the firms that we work with are on Microsoft. So we try to focus on like, hey, can we leverage the Microsoft ecosystem a little bit further? And to your point, there are other technologies that may do a better job of giving you what you're looking for, but there's trade-off with it, and security certainly can be one of them. And it's weighing those decision points of, hey, we're willing to take the risk because the insight that we're getting by adding this technology is A, B, and C, and we have mitigated those risks because we put the right protocols and procedures in place to ensure that there is no data leakage, or that we have the proper safeguards in place to avoid that or limit it as much as possible.
Yeah. Okay.
Would you be able to speak a little bit to the idea of data lakes, data warehouses, that type of thing, and how this relates to the discussion that we're having here today?
Yeah, so data lakes we don't see, so it's still early in the process in terms of like firms actually building out a full data lake from our experience, or at least the things that I'm involved with. As it relates to the data, a lot of the time that we're spending right now is on like the governance and standards associated with it, and understanding where that data actually lives in the various systems and connecting those dots. So looking at it from a data architecture standpoint of, hey, what is the source of truth for first name, last name, email address, typically a CRM. Hey, for financial planning, it's probably in the planning software. So identifying where those pieces of data actually live and understanding how it all gets connected, because then if you know where the source of truth is, you can know where to make those updates accordingly, or have automations be able to make those updates to say, hey, marital status got updated. We know the source of truth for that data lives in the CRM. We need to make an update in the CRM. And then if there's other systems that capture or utilize that field, they would receive the update as well too.
And who's the traffic cop? Like, who's doing that? What piece of software is doing that?
In terms of like managing the data, or?
Yeah, like, in other words, when there's a need to update some data, what's sort of the one ring that binds them all or rules them all, right? That says, okay, the source of truth for the marital status is in the CRM, the source of truth for the financial is in e-money or what have you. What's that product or solution that's governing all of that? Is that a Jump? Is that a Zox? Is that Claude? Is that something else?
It's more the firm sets the standards for where the source of truth will be across their system. So that's why you have to look at it from, hey, what data are we capturing? Why are we capturing this data? And where does the data actually live? It may live in multiple systems. And if that's the case, then you would ask the question of, what is the source of truth for this data? And if we say like, hey, marital status source of truth is going to be the CRM, but we also have it in the planning software and these other systems, then we want to make sure that we have either like an automation setup or some type of integration that says, hey, anytime the CRM gets updated from marital status, it will automatically update those respective systems. And based off our firm status, we realize that to be true because this is the standards that we set out for our data.
But where do those rules live? Do those rules live in someone's head or in a piece of software?
Ideally in a document. They would,
Document.
yeah, so the data standards would be like an outline in terms of how, pretty much like the data architecture of the firm. So like, hey, these are all the data points that we're capturing. These are how the systems connect. This is where data gets stored in CRM versus planning software. And if an update gets made in CRM, then it needs to get pushed to planning software or vice versa, is typically how we do it. And a lot of times what we end up doing is working with firms to help them understand what their data standards are. And our team is pretty versatile because we work across a number of firms. So they'll bring either best practices or common things that they see firms be able to leverage. So like marital status typically would live like in the CRM, for example. And obviously like email would probably live in the CRM as well too, as the source of truth, because that's the origination point of making contact with a specific prospect. So those things are both best practices, kind of firm philosophy, but really defining it in like your data architecture. You can create diagrams as well too, or you can just create like a simple document that outlines, hey, these are all our systems, these are all the data points associated with it, and this is the rules of where we believe that the source of data will live.
I think what Chuck's asking, is it an LLM that's running the show? Like who's running the show? Like what platform, what software platform is making these decisions to pull data from here and over here and aggregating it somewhere?
Are you talking about it from like an AI standpoint?
Yeah. Like who's the traffic cop? Who's the one that's enforcing all the rules and telling stuff where to go?
Yeah, so like a Jump, for example, that would be, if you're using Jump for the meeting notes and meeting note taker, then obviously it would transcribe the meetings and then you would set it up to push your meeting notes into the CRM. So I guess the question you're asking is, where is the trigger related to how the data is going to flow across the systems?
Yep.
I think is what I'm hearing. Yeah, so it would be dependent on what data it is. So for like meeting notes, for example, yeah, if you're using Jump as your meeting note taker, then Jump would be able to capture the meeting notes, and then you would have to set it up, or Jump has the capability to allow you to push it into the CRM, for example. So those things, it depends on what data is being captured at what point determines who the cop is, I guess, to answer your question more clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I'm kind of hearing, so Daleele, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're looking at the 30,000 foot view, essentially where you have to start with is make sure that the managers or the people doing the work understand what's happening with the information, and they set the standards and or the rules. And then you go to finding out, okay, because really, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're helping do is be that architecture builder. So you can take the rules up here, disseminate that down, and then it's actually supporting the advisory team, which then in turn supports their clients. Is that
Correct.
accurate, or am I missing a step in there?
Yeah, that's accurate. And I think maybe another example that would be helpful, we do a lot of work with like online forms, so like Jot form, type form, precise FB, so on and so forth. That would be like a cop, or your data cop is like, hey, anytime we have a new prospect, they fill out this form, we want to capture this specific information and we want this information to go to these systems. That would be like another example. And you would have to set those standards up front to say, hey, when they're booking their initial client meeting, like the first call with us, then we want to make sure, obviously, we capture first name, last name, but we want to capture email address, and maybe we want to capture qualifiers at that point of certain things, like maybe what's your net worth or other ballpark identifiers that would either qualify or disqualify someone. You can capture that in a form, and then that would filter them out, or filter them to a shorter call time period, or it could filter them actually to like someone else, right? So like, hey, this person doesn't qualify to meet with a senior advisor. We want them to go to a junior advisor because of these qualifiers that we have in the form. So that would be like a standard you would set up front, which would then allow the routing to happen based off of the rules that you have across your firm.
All right, I'm going to be exiting real quick here, but I want one more question I want to ask. Because Daleele, when you go to work with an advisory firm, you already mentioned you kind of start out at that high level and make sure you go into it. And I'm going to ask this question because I think this will be good for listeners, regardless if they reach out to you or not. When you're walking into a firm, and where do you look to see, is this firm really ready to start applying some of these tools we're talking about? Or oh man, they got some background work that would really be helpful for them? And what would that background work look like?
Yeah, I think so. Usually we just ask for like simple punch lists of items that they feel like they're struggling with, and that usually can give us insight on where to start. So, like, one of the basic things is, hey, where do you feel like you could be more efficient, or where are you spinning your wheels over and over again? And try to be as specific as possible. So, like, hey, Daleele in the operations department is spending too much time generating these types of reports, or Daleele forgets to do follow-ups and follow-ups are falling through the cracks. So creating like a high level punch list of where you feel like you're not being as efficient, or where time is being wasted across the firm that can be better leveraged, is typically where we start. And then we also look across their technology ecosystem to say, hey, what are you using from a technology standpoint? Is there a lot of redundancy? Are there things that you can consolidate down into one platform that would be ideal? One of the simple ones that we always look at as well too is asking the question, if they're on Microsoft, for example, are they using SharePoint for document repository? If no, what's the reason for that? And if they have like a valid reason, whatever it may be, then we would say, okay, that makes sense. If not, then it may make sense to get it into Microsoft because you're already paying for that software. And then to your point for the agents, now we're centralizing the data into this ecosystem. So it has now access to your emails, your calendar, events, and now it has access to your documents as well too. So kind of asking those questions to say, hey, can we consolidate things down?
So
And then
it's going to
lastly,
be, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, the last thing I was just going to say is ROI. Once again, like starting with the end in mind. I mean, we build custom solutions, so it's not an off-the-shelf product that you're paying a monthly subscription for. So really justifying the cost of, hey, this process, 2 people are doing it 30 minutes a day between the context switching and them having to actually do it. It's not only taking account their time, but if they don't do it, or if it gets delayed in the process, then it impacts the entire client experience, or it can cause certain things that we don't want to cause happen. And that would kind of identify, hey, this is a critical item that we want to get implemented, and the ROI associated with it is higher for that reason.
Okay. So if they're really at that first step, the first thing you're probably going to want to know is, hey, what's your tech stack and the exact reason why you're using that tech stack? And then you can dig down from there. Is that kind of a good starting point?
Yeah, and what they think their pain points are. So they may not
Okay.
fully be aware of that. And so like what our team comes in and does is they'll do interviews across team members as well too, because sometimes leadership thinks operation uses the system one way, and operation thinks leadership knows how they're like. There could be some disconnect in that realm.
All our team knows exactly why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, so we'll come in and just provide the, hey, why are you doing that? And sometimes that uncovers the recommendation that we make from a solution standpoint of, hey, Chad is using the system in this way. We may either want to take that into consideration as part of the solution, or maybe we want to eliminate or make it very hard for Chad to do it that way. And there's certain ways that you can go about doing that. So.
Really cool. Daleele, thank you so much for joining us. Rob and Chuck, you guys will do great. I'm looking forward to listening to the rest. We'll see you guys later. I got a client that's knocking on my door here. All right.
We'll see you guys.
Hey, Chad. See you. So this really is very interesting to me because it's such an important topic, especially as firms are growing, and we've been growing, and the needs for efficiencies just gets really important. And I love what you said earlier there with regards to having a good reason for why you have something, right? And, you know, we've grown quite a bit over the past few years, and we find ourselves doing that exact thing right now, which is we have this, or we have been doing this. Why? You know, why are we doing it this way? Why do we have the software? And I tell you what, we've been dropping software like crazy. Like, it's amazing how you just pick up all these little software things, especially they're all cloud-based, and you pick it up and you only know you have it when you get that bill each month.
Yeah.
And so, you know, our director of finance, which happens to be my wife, is always asking me, like, when was the last time you used this? And she does the same thing with my clothes. It's like, when was the last time you wore this? She's like, this thing is going. And she's been doing the same thing with software. And, you know, it's amazing how many little rinky-dink little pieces of software that sound like a good idea at the time, and they make it real simple for you to sign up, and obviously really hard for you to get, as we all know. But I think that's an important exercise to do, you know, every couple of few years, like the same way you would clean out your closet, clean out your tech stack, because it's so easy for these little nuisance things to show up on your P&L, and you're like, I don't even recognize what the heck this thing is. What would be your advice to advisors on what sort of cadence they should use, or I assume there should be some central repository for here's all the tech, and maybe like a one-liner, like what is this thing used for? That's something else that we're doing is we're building essentially these standard operating procedure manuals.
Yep.
And it's forcing us to be really clear, like we have this for this reason. And boy, I tell you what, if you can't come up with a reason for why you have something,
Yeah.
you've got to go.
Yeah, that's very good, and the documentation is key. The other thing, and this is where I guess going back to AI could be useful as well. One of the suggestions we always make is you can leverage AI to build your SOP. So like when you talk
Yeah,
about, hey, if yeah, so have you guys done that already? Of like just voice.
starting to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's usually a good way. The other thing I would say there as well too that's been gaining more popularity because of AI is the AI, like an internal AI committee, or frankly, it should be a technology committee that's responsible for making these decisions. So it's just not one person going to a conference saying, "Hey, we're going to use this awesome
Oh,
new
really cool
technology."
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hey, I went to a conference, I saw this tool, it seems to be useful, and then having other people internally within the firm be able to decide, yes, we're going to implement it, and yes, we believe it's going to be valuable. So making having a council like that is very useful, and we're starting to see that be a lot more prevalent, especially with AI, because people are concerned about compliance and it's overwhelming for a lot of
Yeah,
firms, and
sure.
having that internal task force or committee talking about those items makes it more fruitful as it relates to making those types of decisions.
Yep. Where are you seeing advisors live most right now? I love asking that question because we have landed on Salesforce as being essentially our advisor portal. And then we're building out some custom Salesforce pages. So that way, the goal is for advisors, and I work as an advisor too. I'm the CEO of Sovereign, but I'm a financial advisor. I talk to clients every single day. And I try to be in as few different screens as possible. But every conference, and I go to a lot of conferences, I'm hearing again and again how we're going to be living essentially in this AI, layer and not really in the Salesforce or the, whatever CRM, Wealthbox, Redtail, what have you. And I know I asked that before, but I'd like to go a little deeper into that if you can. Any insights from your perspective, which I'm sure is better than mine, like what do you think that's going to look like in a year or two?
Yeah, so on the agent layer, multi-agent orchestration is what they're calling it as well too. Of you build
Okay.
these agents, so the agents become specialized. So we actually just hosted a roundtable as well here, and there was one firm that was talking about this. They have multiple agents across the firm, so they have one agent that's specifically a tax agent, and that is highly trained on tax-specific questions. It has very specific tax sources that it looks at, and it knows, hey, when a person's asking me something, it's the topic associated with that is tax versus like planning, for example. Like a planning agent would be another one. But I think over time what will happen is as people build these specialized agents, the output becomes better, because if you think about like a profession, a doctor, for example, specializes in like anesthesia, and that's their specialty. They don't really do orthopedic surgery, or they're not like a general medicine practitioner. And so like
Right.
a way to think about that is agents are similar to that degree. So like if they are an anesthesiologist, you have an agent that's specializing in being able to put people to sleep and wake them up for their operations. And that's where we're seeing agents be highly leveraged, because the insights are better, because it's specialized to be able to execute on those specific items that you're asking it for. And so the output and the results are better because it's trained with that lens in mind. And I think over time, you'll have these specialized agents that will be able to say, hey, we're doing a plan. We don't know, there's some tax complications here. Go talk to this other tax agent, give me the information associated with it, and that person's highly trained and specialized in it, and then give me that result back. And so we can continue moving forward with the plan that we're putting in place. I think that's over time where we may be headed, but I think it's early to tell, because we were also talking about all of the costs associated with AI and tokens and building custom agents. That is still early in the process. And I know like the AI tools are making updates as well. So it's still early to be told, at least where we're going to go from that
Yeah.
degree.
But what does that even look like though? So do I go to like a dashboard and I have my tax agent, I have my planning agent, I have my operations agent, and then I click on those agents to do their specific tasks? Like, could you describe that at all? Because I'm trying to get my head around this a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I
So
know going into Salesforce what that looks like, and I have the tabs and all this, but in the sort of agentic world, what does that start like actually looking like?
Yeah, so I'll give you, I guess, a real example that I actually did recently.
Yeah,
So I was
that'd be great.
I was working on a presentation, so I'm doing a lot of speaking events. I was working on a presentation. I ended up going to the Copilot 365 agent just from Office.com. That's more of the general one. Microsoft also has a PowerPoint agent that specializes in PowerPoint specific content, so it knows, hey, you're building a PowerPoint. There's certain things that you may want to include in that, and the output that we're going for is a PowerPoint deck. So I started with the general agent in Microsoft, like Office.com, which is the higher level one that goes across all of the applications. And it realized I gave it some content, just some text content, and said, hey, here's a slide that I'm looking to build, so on and so forth. It then launched the Microsoft PowerPoint specific agent. So it led me from the general agent to the specific agent because it knew I was working on a PowerPoint. And so it launched that agent, or took me to that agent. I was like, I didn't launch that. So then I realized it was smart enough to know the output I was looking for was within PowerPoint because I had mentioned that, I think, in my text. And so now I was working inside of the Microsoft PowerPoint specific agent, which is highly trained to be able to give you presentation insights or feedback based off of the questions that you're asking that agent. So I don't know if that helps.
It does help, but let me share this with you to contrast. So I just did a whole PowerPoint presentation on estate planning through Claude, Claude.
Yep.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Like really amazing. The content was amazing. The formatting was amazing. And I tell you what, I did it in about an hour. But when I say an hour, Claude was on this screen over here, and I was doing some work. Claude was working on it, and I was doing other work. And I was like, that sounds good. Change this. I go back here. Claude's working on it. It was really an amazing experience. So really, the amount of time I was typing in Claude was probably 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? The work was about an hour between it's thinking about it, all this. The reason why I asked is I keep hearing a lot more about Claude at these conferences.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, like, is Claude in lieu of Zox or Jump? And one panel, I was in the audience, I was actually on this particular panel, but it was a really great panel. And one of the CTOs there was saying how they have Claude live on top of, and I forgot if they had Zox or Jump, it was one of those. So it's kind of like Claude, then Zox or Jump, and then the, CRM planning and all this. That sounds interesting to me, but I was like, I can't get my head around this. Like, what does that mean? Like, where do I go? Do you know much about what's going on with Claude? I hear they're launching their own segment channel specifically for the financial space.
Yeah.
I'm really eager to see what that's going to look like. Do you know? And if so, is that going to be in lieu of a Zox or a Jump or in addition to? That's a question I still can't get a good answer on.
Yeah, so it depends. So I know like Claude launched the Excel plugin that's really powerful. And even when we looked at it, I think I was talking to my co-founder about this as well. It's a little bit superior compared to what Copilot has. But Claude is the front-facing application or the agent that people are using. And then Anthropic has the large language model. So if you want it to build, it can live on top or it can be the tool that you're leveraging. It just depends on what task you're completing.
Yeah.
So the way to think about it as well too is like if we are building a custom agent, for example, we could use Claude's brain or Anthropic's brain for that agent and say, hey, we want to build a custom agent that lives on top of these data points for the brain of this agent. Let's leverage Claude's Anthropic model, or we can use OpenAI's model, or we can use Microsoft. Like we could make those decisions based off of what we want to leverage, and that's at the more like LLM level on making those decisions. So to answer your question, it can live on top if you're building an agent that's leveraging the LLM behind the scenes to be able to do that, or it could be like in this example, you could be leveraging Claude's Excel plugin to do what you need to do within Excel, and at that point you are using a Claude tool for that.
Interesting.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
This reminds me of a little bit. And if I could find this easily, I don't know if you guys want to kind of splice this into this episode, but there's a very famous clip of someone on like the Today Show like 30 years ago. And they were like, what is this World Wide Web thing? I don't understand it. Right? If I could find that clip, Rob, I'll send it to you because it'd be funny to get a pan to that for just a second. But in that right now, like I see that this is a big deal. I've used it firsthand. I see the power, but I don't think really any of us are really clear on what it's going to mean for our industry or for any industry for that matter. But I'm more concerned about mine, right? what it's really going to look like even in a couple of years. And it's making me really rethink how we're focusing on what we're doing with Salesforce, because we've been really pouring some time, effort, resources, money into customizing that. And now we're tapping the brakes. I'm like, whoa, maybe we don't do that, because perhaps in 6 months, Salesforce is going to be really behind the scenes, and we're going to be visually, the UI, the user interface, be dealing with something else. And that's what I'm really concerned about, frankly, on just like I'm managing the P&L perspective. Do I want to spend X more dollars with our Salesforce consultant when maybe Salesforce is going to be like just one big spreadsheet soon, where the data perhaps lives and some, workflows get launched from, but our advisors are now going to look through this much prettier user interface that's going to be essentially an agentic overlay or something like this. I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
really interesting.
I think time will tell that. And you're 100% right. Like, we always joke about it as well too, is that you may not be able to do it today, but you can do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So like, even when we present and say, hey, this is what's happening today, because it's accelerating and changing so fast. And to your point, the investments that are being made on the product side, I mean, we don't have insight fully into that. And yes, they could come out, and they're constantly releasing things on a daily basis. At least that's what I see, certainly within the Microsoft ecosystem. Things are being released daily that are it's making it easier for people to be able to work. On the flip side, though, to that as well, it'll be, I guess, training in terms of I think AI is forcing us to be very clear communicators, because you have to know what questions you're looking to get answered. And I watched a video the other day of someone joking about AI, and it was asking someone to cut a sandwich, and what it was actually a very funny video, because it said, hey, this is my life with AI, and it had asked it like to cut a sandwich as a joke, and then there was a human that was going to cut the sandwich sideways, so instead of cutting it down the middle, it was going to cut it this way, and it was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then it said cut it the other way, and so then it turned the sandwich and tried to cut it the other way, and so like it kept going back and forth. So I think in terms of like the AI tools, it's being able to train everyone, even like myself included, on how do you be as clear and descriptive and provide as much context to get the output that you're looking for. And
Yeah.
that happens with training as well too, not only training individuals, but training the model or like the agent to know what insights you're looking to gain.
That's
But
right.
Can I take I'm gonna give a contrarian view, because I want to flip the script here on this, because we're getting really nerdy on the AI stuff. I want to talk about something that's on the minds of, I think, a lot of founders like myself, and probably you as well, Chuck. And I just delivered a keynote to a very specialized group of A&E specialist brokers, meaning they're in the architects and engineer space. And the keynote, basically the overlying theme of my keynote was, how do you differentiate and how do you make yourself so indispensable to clients in the age of AI and specialization? So my premise was, those who understand how to leverage the power of AI will win. Those
Yeah.
who become specialists in their craft are going to win. And those who become masters of building really strong relationships and going back to the human side, I think AI gives us an incredible opportunity to leverage things that we shouldn't be doing anyway, but that we're leveraging the technology to do things that can allow us to stay in front of customers and prospects way more than ever before.
Mhm.
So I would actually flip the script and say, those that are going to win in the next 3 to 5 years are going to master AI for the right reasons and the right way to use it. And those who really hone their relationship and partnership building skills, I think, are going to win, because at the end of the day, number one, I heard something really incredible the other day on a podcast. AI is only as good as the humans who are training it. So you still need humans. You still need humans to tell it what to do.
Now.
For now. And of course, it's getting smarter and it's evolving. But it presents an incredible opportunity for those, like what you just said was brilliant. Really working on your communication skills and becoming really good at building relationships and partnerships and going really deep on that skill set. I think those who go deep on that skill set are going to win at the end of the day, because people still want to do business with people. I don't want to do business with an AI bot. I'm not gonna buy insurance or financial advisory services from an AI bot because I personally don't trust it. I would rather have a human personal relationship with my financial advisor. And some people might disagree with me, but that's just me. I'm a little old school, but I truly believe I think we're going to see a shift in people wanting to go back to really developing deep, meaningful relationships with other people because of this AI movement. So I think it's going to push us towards the more human side of this business. And I could be completely wrong, but that's kind of what I believe.
Well, I completely agree with that. And I've said this even going back to the whole robo-advisor, like how robo-advisors will replace us and how AI is going to replace us. And Rob, I'm 100% with you, and I've said this publicly as well, AI is not going to replace advisors, but advisors that use AI well will replace advisors that don't use AI well. And I'll give you a good example. So we're test driving Zox and Jump, currently at our firm. So I'm using Jump this week, I think. Yeah, it was Jump this week. And I had a great conversation with a client. And you know what? I was like, I'm going to trust this to, take the notes. And I had my pen and paper just in case there was something really important that I really wanted to make sure it didn't miss. But, it allowed me to just really focus on that conversation and not have to worry about scribbling all these notes and all this. So, Rob, to your point, it allowed me to be a better advisor because I was much more present, not having to worry about it. And then I looked at the notes later, and I think I wrote down 2 or 3 things. I was like, God forbid I forget these because I can't forget these 3 things. Not only were those 3 things in the notes, but I've never taken such good notes as this particular note taker did. It was fantastic. And what I really love about it, though, too, and this I think is important, now that lives in the CRM. And we work as a team. So now that knowledge is in there. And I'll give you one more great example. So we have a relatively new, for the past year, chief operating officer who's been doing phenomenal work for us and really getting us to that next level operationally. And he's having these weekly meetings with the advisors. So I don't have to do that anymore. I'm focusing on other stuff. But I'm getting the AI recap. And there was something that the advisor brought up that the COO didn't have to know about because he's only been here about a year. I knew because I had that institutional knowledge. I was able to just within 5 minutes read the notes, see like, oh, no, we are able to do that, launch that out with an email, and boom, it was fixed. What a great way to keep everyone in touch. I thought that was a great use case for that AI note-taking because there'd be no way to think you could take that level of detailed notes, but really concise bullet points. Me as the CEO, I could look at it and be like, oh no, that's something we have to work on. We have that capability right now. He just wasn't aware of it. I shared that and it was fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah. We're doing something very similar, Chuck, that post call, whether it be a client call or we're talking to a new prospect, we will then take the transcript in a markdown file and upload it to our platform that we use. And it creates, because it's created with the templates that we want, the outputs we want, it creates a really nice client or prospect brief. Like it's a document that basically says, here's the summary of what we talked about. Here are the problems that you told us you want us to help you solve. Here's the next step. Here's the next action plan. Here's like a detailed plan. It would have taken me hours to do that in the old way. But now we have everything that's so automated and so streamlined. I just send it to where it needs to go. It gives me a beautiful output that I trained it on the framework and the structure. And it makes me better because I don't have to spend all that time sitting there creating this report, creating this brief. But then what's amazing is what it does to the client experience, because then I send that to the client with a custom Loom video. I do like a 2 or 3 minute Loom video and I just say, hey, Mr. Prospect or Mrs. Client or whatever, we created this brief, this brief for you, which summarizes all of the things we talked about and the things that you told us were most important for you. And it just has created an incredible customer experience for us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you, sorry, go ahead, Chuck.
I was going to just add one more thing to that, because this was not me. This was someone else that told this to me, which I thought was brilliant. AI used well allows you to be a better human, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what you did right there, Rob. And I think that's exactly one of the best use cases.
Yeah.
I was going to ask the question around, I guess, which tools are you using to be able to generate that template, and how long did it take you to do the training for that agent? Because it sounds like it has your structure, your format, and things that you want to include on it.
Yeah. Right now, what we do is we'll build like a custom GPT or a project GPT, and then we'll build out the canonical architecture in the form of these markdown files. We train the knowledge source. So basically, when we upload, like, we haven't gone to the agentic. My team is right now working on an agentic model where it just happens like seamlessly. We're not as advanced as you guys are, but we're getting there. We're getting close. But what we do is we build the architecture, the AI architecture inside of these custom GPTs, and it already has the templates. So a markdown file of a template of exactly what we want the output to look like.
Yep.
And then we just upload the transcripts, and it happens, it spits out a great output. And the cool thing that we've built the SOPs so that my team, there's human touch points as far as like QC. Like, I want everybody, any kind of outputs, it's required as part of our SOPs to have a checklist, an operating checklist, which is a QC. That's like the last step of our process. Somebody, a human, has to go through and just check the output to make sure that it didn't hallucinate or it's accurate or something wasn't put in there that shouldn't be put in there. So we're putting some governance in there to basically help the team better manage the outputs and put that human touch on it.
Yeah, that's great. Chuck, I was also going to ask you as well, too. You mentioned the meeting notes. Do you, when it goes into your CRM, are you doing the same thing that, like, he had mentioned, having like the human in the loop? So ahead of it going directly into the CRM,
Yeah.
if someone, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
we
an
have it set
important
up
point
so
as
that
well.
way there's some sort of guardrail or checkpoint, whatever you want to call it. So
Yeah.
I would never send tasks or notes to the CRM, and certainly never emails directly to the client. I
Yep.
like to look at them first and then send it to the client, look at it first, send it to the CRM. Because as you guys know, once it's in the CRM, that's what happened, right? That's
Yeah.
the record. So
Yep.
you better be comfortable with it. And if you're not comfortable with it, or if it did make a mistake, and I'm sure it can make mistakes. So far, I haven't seen any real mistakes, but I'm sure it could happen. Once it's in the CRM, that's what happened, right? That's the
Mhm.
record. So
Yeah.
I would in no way ever suggest anyone just have the notes taken and just drop it in the CRM. Give it a quick read, give it an edit if you need to, then click the button to get into the CRM. But even with that, it still saves you a ton of time. But I
Yep.
would take that extra 3 or 4 minutes. That would be 3 or 4 minutes very well spent.
Yeah.
And I wonder too if we can at some point in the future have a dedicated specialist agent that is like that compliance piece, which we would eventually trust more than a human. And I'm not saying we would do that. I'm just saying I'm thinking ahead, like having an extra layer in there, like an extra agent that is very well trained on all the compliance terminology and the rules and the governance and those guardrails. I wonder at some point if we put all of those notes through that filter first before it gets dumped into a CRM. I wonder if that model is eventually going to happen. I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box
Yeah,
here.
they have something like that right now. So for reviewing emails, so now we're talking with our email archiver, and I like using names so people know what we're talking about. We use Global Relay, pros and
Yeah.
cons with it. And they have this new AI thing where currently, or the old fashioned way, for lack of a better term, of checking emails is, I think they call it a lexicon based, meaning it's looking for bad words, like it's looking for guaranteed, right? But what happens there is sometimes you're getting some false positives, right? Like, I guarantee the Yankees are going to win. Well, I don't care about that, right? But even more scary is some stuff that's not using the word guarantee, but it could also be very bad to do. A lexicon based overlay is not going to catch that, but a contextual based overlay could catch that. So what's happening there, as we're exploring it, allows us not to have a human read through all these emails, but basically read through a short list of the ones where there may be a problem. And then I'm sure you can tune it, like err on the side of caution, give me ones that you think there might be a problem, and we would rather just look at those emails. And also the ability to review marketing materials, like, especially now we have so many advisors doing all this content,
Mhm.
social media, YouTube's, podcasts, right? That's very time intensive. Let's put that through an AI, right? And then have a short list of what a human should then look at. But to Rob's point earlier, at the end of the day, the human factor is the key, which is don't hire people you think are going to be compliance problems. Like, I don't care what kind of AI you have. If you're hiring people that are sketchy, don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're
That's
hiring your next D&O claim.
right.
Yeah.
So I have one question for you, Daleele. What kind of like a high level question for you? When you guys are working with clients, what is the number one constraint, the primary constraint that you find most often that needs to be solved first?
That's a good question. And we're saying like the pain point that they're experiencing within the firm.
I would say when I look at everything from a constraint theory of constraint standpoint, so yes, it could be a problem or pain point, but see, here's the problem. Sometimes clients or prospects aren't problem aware.
Yeah.
So it's up to us to go in and find that primary constraint because they might think it's one thing when in fact it's something else. So you kind of have to do a more of a diagnostic approach. When you guys do your diagnostic, what do you find is the true number one primary constraint that every advisor should really be aware of that maybe they're not aware of?
That's a good question. There's a couple different things. I would say it's the knowledge of, so like sometimes when we say, when we talk to clients, sometimes when you're in it is a different view than when you're out looking in. And so to your point, being able to even spot the problem, they sometimes don't do that because they're so in the trenches and they're kind of on the day to day and they're trying to service clients and things of that nature. So they don't even realize that there's an operational inefficiency that can be much more efficient with technology or a process change as a whole. Maybe it doesn't even impact technology, but having an outsider come in, whether it's a consultant like us or just in general, another team member coming into the process and looking at it and asking a question in simple terms, usually you can spot check, hey, there's an issue here that we may want to consider tackling is one thing. And I think the other thing is, since the compliance would probably be a big thing, I would say as well too. So people are very hesitant to leverage some of these AI tools. So it's either all in. So there are some people in the middle, but it's either all in or all out. So some of the people don't even want to touch it because of how the compliance piece is a concern. And so educating them through that whole process is a lot of times what our delivery team is doing. And even when you talk about like the different models and does it live on top of each other, or are there separate things that you want to have to leverage? Even some of that stuff, like our delivery team is well more versatile than even I am, because you have to get into the weeds of how does this technology actually work, and to be able to articulate that to make people feel comfortable to say, okay, now conceptually in simple terms, I understand the impacts of this. I understand how it works. It is one of the, I guess, things that people are really hesitant on. So I don't know if that answers your question. So.
No, it answers my question. I think what I'm learning now even more so is the more clients you work with, the more touch points and data points that you have and experience at how to solve those complex problems. So the more time I spend out there diving in and getting in the weeds on clients, their systems that they've built inside of their business, the easier it is for us on the outside, because we have such a level of different data points to work from, because we've worked with so many different types of organizations. That's where the strategic advantage is. We can go in there and say, well, here's your real problem. Here's the bottleneck in your business. Like, here's the constraint. We need to solve this first, because then that could solve so many other things downstream that maybe you didn't even realize. If we just move this lever, it's going to solve other things that, they just kind of solve themselves. So
yeah. At the Chuck's point earlier as well too, of like the data standards, like going through that exercise, documenting it, talking about it, having the team be part of the conversation, and then having the understanding of why we're doing this. Because I may have a shortcut and I say, hey, I can do this in 5 minutes. I don't want to use your process. That's a little bit different than what I'm doing now. But if someone's able to explain, hey, you doing that this way is going to impact Joe downstream and require him to do these 3 steps in addition to what he's already doing, would hopefully get more buy-in from the person to not do what they're doing to break the process.
Yeah, that was helpful for us. Well, it looks like we're coming up on time here, Rob.
Yeah. Should we ask Daleele the power question?
I think it's time for the power question.
Since I'm a guest host today, do you want me to launch into it?
Yeah, please.
Awesome. So Daleele, we always have, at the end of every show, we always have a kind of a surprise question for our guests, but it really reveals a lot about you as a person, because we love getting to know you as a person and learning about what you do in your business and how you're really helping to solve problems and transform businesses. But the one question I have is, I want you to imagine for a moment that you are forward in your career, you've retired, and you're kind of looking back on your legacy and what you've accomplished. What do you want people to remember you most by?
That's a good question. That's a deep question. I'd probably say the first one that comes to mind is two things, I think. So first one would be integrity. Like, hey, Daleele was always doing the right thing, and he said he lived by higher values of integrity and like even doing the right thing when no one's looking. I strongly believe in that because we're all just living this life, figuring things out as we go, and we learn more over the years. So just being a man of integrity would be one thing. And then I also think the other thing is hopefully positive interactions. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world, but hey, when I met with Daleele, he made me feel really good, or he provided some positivity to my day, just a smile, a head nod, a hey, how you doing, or he listened to me along those lines. I think would probably be the biggest two.
Amazing. I love it.
That's a
I
deep
love it.
question. I have to think about that a little bit more too.
In all the
Sounds
years
good.
I've been doing podcasts and asking that question, because I love asking that question the most at the end. I've never had anyone say, yeah, you know what? I want to retire with $100 million in my bank account. And, that's going to really make me feel accomplished. No one has ever said that. At the end of the day, I think we're all humans and we want to do right to others.
Yep.
Like the golden rule, we want to do the right thing. We want to have integrity. We want people to have trust and faith in us. And to me, that's the greatest legacy ever, is
Yeah.
for people to look at you and say, man, I really liked Daleele and he was a good guy. And man, he just had the highest integrity and just loved working with him. Like, that's what you want people to say.
Yeah.
And the 100 million too, though. It'd be nice to have both.
Nothing wrong with that, neither.
I'm speaking for myself.
Well, if you get 100 million in your bank account, you get 100 million in the bank account, and then you call Chuck and you say, what do I do with this money?
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, Chuck, you want to do the close, or you want me to close it out? And we just landed the plane, I think.
Yeah, I think we landed the plane, but if you would do the close, because it's been a few weeks and Chad usually does it, so I'm probably a little rusty.
No, that's okay. I'm a pro. It's like training wheels, right? You learn to do it, and then you got to go back, put the training wheels back on again, and you got to pick up where you left off.
That's
So,
right.
Daleele, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on today. You are a brilliant guy. You're doing some amazing work, and we're just blessed to have you on today. And man, you didn't disappoint at all. You brought your A game. So I really appreciate that. And guys, listen, if you found value in today, we really would love to have you like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to have another amazing guest next week. But Daleele, as we close here, if people wanted to learn more about you, where can they reach out to you? What's the best place for people to reach you?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks again for having me as well too. It's been a very fruitful conversation, so I appreciate you having me on the show. It's been great for me. If you want to find me, LinkedIn is probably the best place to locate me. So just go to LinkedIn and send me an invite. You can also go to our website, RooksDM.com, but I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. It's not coming from a chat bot. It's coming from me if you get my messages. So you can, hit me up on LinkedIn.
That's great. And you know what? We'll put all that information to reach out to you. All of your contact info is going to be in the show notes. So we'll put that in the description on all the platforms that we get this out to. And by the way, I don't know if you remember, but I met you with Chad in DC at the NAFA conference.
Oh, yeah. Now I remember. Okay.
You're from Charlottesville, right? Like,
yes.
That's where I went to school. I went to UVA. And
Yeah.
remember, you and I talked about that a little bit. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's good to run into you again. It's been a long time. It was last year, but I just wanted to mention that, when we talked, I was just blown away by all the insights that you have, and that all the things that you shared are spot on. So we really appreciate you having you on today.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me again.
Right.
All right,
Great
guys.
conversation. Thanks for joining us, Rob. Always great to see you.